Hello everyone, so we're going to have a look at the Hearthstone Lich King mini set, which is called the Return to NAXXramas, which launches on Tuesday, February 14th, so everybody can go and spam Nax out on Valentine's Day, because we're all gamers, we don't have anything to do on Valentine's Day anyway. And I'm gonna review the first sets of cards that have been revealed. So far, we've had Death Knight, we've had Hunter, we've had Priest, and we've had all the neutral cards that have been revealed so far. And the cards that we're getting here, I want to start with is always the neutral ones, because the neutral ones are just like the foundation for everything else. So we have here new neutral legendary revealed, the Rivendare War Rider. And Rivendare War Rider is a 6-mana 6/6 death rattle. Shuffle the other 3 horsemen into your deck. It's an undead. So obviously this is a very bad card. And then it shuffles a 6/6 with Rush, Taunt, and Lifesteal into your deck. And if all 4 of the horsemen die, then you destroy the enemy hero. Which means, of course, if you have 3 of them die and you play the 4th one, your opponent can like polymorph it or silence it, and then nothing will happen. Obviously, this card is bad. There's not really much else to say to this. There's some funny ways of maybe trying to make this work. From the other side with Shaman, if you have infinite time, you can play this, then you can draw all of them, and you can play from the other side. This is a pretty interesting win condition for some slower decks if they really don't want to put too many other cards in their deck. You can also just like never, if you don't have to, for example, against an aggro deck, you would just like never play this card and just stays in your hand as a win condition. And then against another control deck that gives you like infinite time, you would play this card. Silence does block the death rattle effect, but only on the last one. If you do it on the last one, and silent away the death rattle, nothing will happen when it dies. But if you silence like the second or the third, of course you get it. Also, if you silence the first Rivendare War Rider, you won't be able to play this card. So this card works best in like Shaman, where you could be able to get it out and charge it at your opponent, or you could play it in like Demon Hunter with the 6-mana card where 2 friendly minions fight each other. That would work, but obviously this card's not going to be competitive, but it's going to make for some fun highlight reels. Zarella would also trigger it. Yeah, for example, if all of them have died and even this is silence, Zarella could work with this. Obviously, there's a way to make this work, but this just seems like a super ineffective way to make something like this work. There's also just other win conditions that are just better at like ending games where you don't have to play 6-mana 6/6s that don't really do anything. Like this costs 24 mana and you need to draw a bunch of cards. So this seems like a big no-no, but obviously it's a fun card. I mean, this time you can actually just spam Nax out and it's gonna be fun regardless. Then we have the other neutral cards. We have Tadios Monstrosity, which is a 10 mana 11/11 taunt. Your odd cost cards cost 1. Swap polarity each turn. You would have to cheat this card out, obviously, because it never sticks. Like 10 mana 11/11s don't stick. Like 11/11s on turn 3 don't stick against Rogue because of Deadly Shot. You can do this with even cards as well. This could work with Druid, for example. You could like play this with Druid and then play some cheap cards, but you would have to ramp a lot of mana and it just doesn't do anything proactively. So I think the only way that this card is going to see play is if Evolve Shaman evolves their Null into this. Unless some 11 mana cards get printed, this is something that Shaman can evolve into, and everybody's going to be sad when it happens, except for the Shaman. I don't see this card ever seeing play, but I see it being a nuisance when it gets evolved into. Like, for example, Shaman having access to all their odd cards, like Glug for 1 mana, seems pretty insane to me. Then we have a Mistake. They were teasing that there was going to be a mistake in the mini set, so I was pretty convinced that they're going to have a card which was called something something mistake. Felt like that was pretty obvious, but yeah, now they call the card actually Mistake, which is a really weird looking Murloc amalgam. You know, obviously the Murloc you can see the beast and everything. I think this card actually has some usage. In Shaman, there used to be a deck where you would like to run some undeads and you would like to run some Murlocs together, and that would be a good filler for that deck. I'm not really sure if there's any good realistic direct application for this. Some of your more aggressive not Demon Hunters DKs might want to run it. Not really sure that this makes a lot of sense to put into your deck. Like, if you don't have a corpse spender, even then you might not want to run this over just a plain undead, because if you amalgam on this, you just get something random. The card is interesting, and I'm pretty sure this card will see play at some point. It might just not be right now. So I mean, I like this card. It looks interesting. Then we have 4 mana 5 for Undead Death Rattle. Spend all your mana, summon that minion, that many 2/2 zombies with Rush. Don't really see why this card would be good. You spend all your mana on your turn or your opponent's turn. I don't think this card is good. Might be good in Arena or something. Like, it just makes you use your mana efficiently. But most of the aggro decks where you would want to play this are mana efficient anyway. This might be good every once in a while when it gets discovered, but other than that, I don't really see this card seeing play. Then we have 3 mana 3/3, another Undead. Darkfall and Shadow. It's a 3 mana 3/3 Rush. Mana Thirst 6, gain Reborn. This card is obviously unplayable. 1 mana per 2/2 Rush is very good, but most of the time you won't be having any mana left over. And this is a Death Rattle, right? So if you play it on your turn and you have like 1 mana left over and your opponent doesn't kill it, then you floated a mana. And then you can trade it in and you get like 5 2/2s with Rush, which is like decent, but it doesn't really do what you need it to do. Not in terms of what your like snowbally aggro deck needs to do, which is where I would see this card being played. Probably a good arena card though. Alright, let's move on. Next up, we have new Hunter cards revealed. And they are a 7 mana Faithful Companions. Discover a beast from your deck and summon it. Mana Thirst, 10 mana. Also summon a copy of it. Don't really know where this would be great. I guess it obviously works with cards that are amazing from Dire Frenzy, I guess. Or it gives you double King Crush or something like this. I guess this is a card you could play in some of the more slower, like 40 card hunters, because it just gives you like the flexibility to either have Polar Bear on 7, or you can have double King Crush on turn 10 for 16 bursts. So this card might actually see play in a deck like this, even though the deck itself currently is not seeing that much play. Card looks pretty good. It's very flexible, but I don't think it makes it in the current meta, because the decks that support it well don't currently make it in the meta. But the card is promising, I think. Then we have 2 mana Zombies, which is of course a play on the Bees card that was in Don't Let Me Lie Uldum. Anyway, it's a secret. After your opponent plays a minion, summon 4 1/1 zombies that are undead and beasts that attack your opponent's minion. That looks like a really strong secret, because it's just a snipe with an upside. Unless your opponent, of course, has Putricide on board and profits of you killing minions. This will be quite useful. It looks like a rather strong secret. Like, you play this, your opponent plays a 3/2, you kill it, and you get 2 1/1s on board that can then push face, as well as like have... this is not that easy to play around. This is a secret. If this is your only secret, even then I don't think it's super easy to play around for most decks. Because most of the cards that abuse it, other than Putricide, aren't super good in the meta, like Acolyte of Pain or something like that. This just looks like a generally overall strong card. I'm not sure where exactly it will slot in, because it's like kind of a bad top deck, and it usually requires you to have multiple secrets to get maximum secret value. But the card overall, just from power level, looks pretty strong. This card is very good with infused cards, of course. Like, if you have anything that needs to be infused, this card is absolutely amazing. You get 4 tokens on board, instantly infusing like everything that you need. So, pretty interesting card. Should be kind of good. Also, like, another good hunter discover for Rogue. Then we have 1 mana 1/1 Trinket Tracker, which is Battlecry, draw 1, cost spell. Zombies is also interesting because it kind of prevents some board clear combos from your opponent that are minion based, like from the Demon Hunter that I was just playing, where you want to play a spell power minion or some important minion first. Also like counters an Edwin or something like this. Snipe was just like always a good kind of combo disruption card. Obviously it doesn't disrupt the most important combo in the game right now, which is Warlock, but then again, I do think the card has some value and some applicability. The secret, when it's upgraded, summons 2/2s. You can get the secret from Tavish as well, and then it summons 2/2s, which is really, really strong because it's a lot of board presence. It's just in any case, it's just kind of better than Snake Trap, I feel. It's just harder to clear, but it's a lot more proactive, which a lot of Hunter decks are. Alright, then again, you have a 1-mana 1/1 Trinket Tracker, which is a battle cry, draw a 1-cost spell, and it's undead. That card is very good if you can have some undead synergy, which requires you to play some minions. The first thing that comes to mind is the Vizier. Nerubian Vizier is a very good card, and with Hunter getting additional undeads that they can like sacrifice, that card will be very useful. There's not that many 1-mana spells in Hunter that you really want to tutor though, but I can see the cards finding some applicability because it's just the same way that Knight of the Anointment works in Paladin. It's just a good 1-mana 1/1. Would the secret work with Hawkstrider? No, because Hawkstrider is just play and not summon. But Trinket Tracker just looks like a good card. It's just a 1-mana 1/1 that you can play in a spell heavy deck and just push some damage. Like, maybe you play this in Quest Hunter. Does seem to have some applicability. And again, like, there's some undead self-synergy with Nerubian Vizier, where both of these cards are quite good together. I like these cards. I don't think this will be played. I think Zombies has the possibility to see play. So does Trinket Tracker. But I'm not 100% sure if either one of them will see play immediately. Maybe Trinket Tracker can replace one of the bad 1-drops in your Hunter. The only question that you have to ask yourself in like Hunter, in Quest Hunter, is am I willing to spend 1 mana on this? Or should I maybe just run the spell itself and just... Because if I don't draw this card, I could just have the spell in hand instead, you know? But this could like replace one of the bad 1-drops in one of your like Hunter decks where you don't care that much about, where you just care about having a little bit more value. The main idea of both of these cards is that if you run Vizier, which is a super strong card, the 3-mana 2/4 that lets you discover a spell, and if your undead died last turn, it makes it 2 cheaper. You have some really good synergy there. That card is just one of the most broken cards of the set, and just finding enablers to put it in your deck is quite useful. Moving on, we have Priest cards revealed. 4-mana Cannibalize. Destroy a minion, restores health to all friendly characters. Okay, it's a shadow spell. It's it's Assassinate with an upside. Assassinate, of course, would never be playable, so this one's like... It's obviously a control card. If your opponent plays one really big minion, this is quite useful. It's a very good, like, single target removal. There's some big minions in the meta, but you usually don't remove them with cards like this. You usually remove them with something else. I mean, it's a shadow spell, and probably even healing for like 4 or 5 is good enough. I could see this card being run in some control-ish deck. But then again, Control Priest has other problems in the meta, and I think Control Priest is going to be more defined, or the presence of Control Priest in the meta doesn't really have that much to do with what cards Control Priest has. It has more things to do with what other decks they are, because the matchup spread is not going to be changed by Cannibalize, but the matchup spread might be changed by the mini set and other decks slowly evolving to being good, you know? So in terms of control card, this card looks decent, but not super amazing. It's kind of flashy, but I think it might be overrated. Yeah, like I said, control decks by themselves, they're all super powerful in what they do in terms of the removal that they run, but the prevalence of them in the meta is not determined by the cards that they have, but rather by the other decks that are in the meta. Next up, we have 4-mana 5/4 Rotting Necromancer Battlecry Dredge. If it's an undead, deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. Mind Blast is back and it comes with a body. I do think this card is good. There's already some undead synergy in Priest that is incredibly strong and has the potential to deal a lot of damage. I think this card has a lot of potential, actually. It goes face and it just helps you smart your opponent down. It's also 4-mana 5/4. This fits really well into like the Shadow Undead deck that we have seen a little bit of. And since some of the cards that resurrect Undead have recently been buffed, this card probably sees play in that deck. Then we have 1 mana Mind Seer. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Alright, so you have a board control card that also smorks, that you could also run in Shadow Aggro Priest. All these cards are good Shadow cards, they're good aggro cards, and they're good undead cards. Basically, all of this fits together into some sort of Shadow Aggro Priest that we already seen glimpses of, where you basically run a bunch of undeads, you run some cards that go face, like the 3 mana 4/3 from Priest that when it dies deals 3 damage to your opponent, as well as the 4 mana 2/5 that revives a minion. So you get a lot of minions together that just slowly deal face damage, and these two cards seem like a good fit. The deck, in my opinion, wasn't super bad before, so I think it will help help that deck elevate it a little bit further. The dredge aspect doesn't look very good, but the stats are very good, and oftentimes getting another undead might not be what you want on turn 5. You would probably rather want a spell or something reactive. I think you take this downside very happily in order to be able to deal the 5 damage to your opponent. So priest cards look very promising to me. These two hunter cards look like somewhat promising, not super amazing, but I like them. The neutrals so far seem rather useless. And then we also have the new Death Knight cards revealed. First up, so we have 3 cards revealed. We have a double rune card, which is something completely new, which is 1 red and 1 blue rune. So basically you only play this in like Rainbow DK. You have a 7 mana 6/6 Colossal +2, Frost Queen Syndragosa, which is an undead dragon. After an enemy minion is frozen, destroy it. And you have 2 1/2 rushers that freeze any character damaged by this minion. This just looks like a good card to me. The rune combination is a little bit awkward, because obviously this card would be a lot better in a control deck, so in something that was like triple red. But obviously this being a freeze mechanic, it makes sense that it has blue. I think you could actually run this in Frost DK, because it's something that you can kind of play late game. It looks a little bit like Krakatoa, just for 1 more mana, and it doesn't push any face damage, but it can kill way bigger minions. This has like similarities to Krakatoa, and Krakatoa is like a really good card that you would run in a lot of decks. Like I said, the biggest drawback here is of course the rune distribution, making this kind of only playable in Rainbow, but I think this card can see some play. Yeah, then again, like Crab is better than this in most of the decks that would want to run this. This can kill bigger minions than Crab, obviously, but I think Crab is overall a better card. Has better stats for the mana cost. But Crab is an incredibly powerful card, and a lot of decks would very happily run Krakatoa. So saying it's worse than a card that is also super good is like not disqualifying the card from seeing play. Also, if Syndragosa sticks around, or you have other freeze effects, maybe with the Innervate in like double blue green, double blue red, there's some other really cool things that I think you can do with this card. I really don't mind it. Then we have the 3 mana 2/3, also 1 blue rhyme scale. Rhyme scale, I think is what it says. Rhyme scale Siren. Battle cry: if you've cast 3 spells while holding this, freeze 3 random enemy minions. I don't see why this is good. I think I'd rather run the 4 mana weapon that freezes 3 enemies, because I'm not really spending my corpses in blue anyway. And the weapon goes face better than this does, so I think this card is not going to see any play. Super combo with Syndragosa, yeah, that's useless. Then you have 3 mana location with 3 charges, which says destroy a friendly minion to summon a 4/5 undead with rush. This first thing that comes to my mind is it works really well with School Teacher and some of the cheaper token cards. It's also not rune bound, so it could also work well with some other cards. The 4/5 with rush is rather strong. The 2 mana spell that transforms a friendly undead into a minion does not see play, but destroying is much better because it triggers death rattles of minions where you would like to trigger the death rattle. I think Construct Quarter could see play. Also, the 2 mana spell, which was 1 green rune, had the downside that it had to be a transformation of an undead minion. It could also be used on your opponent, which was an upside, but then again here, specifically, having to transform an undead was never that easy, and sometimes you have some tokens like a Naga-link token or a token from your Hawkstrider that could be transformed. So I can see this card seeing some play. For example, you could use this on an egg and you still get the death rattle, or you could use this on, like I said, a neutral card or any card. Like the two upsides it has over the spell that is currently not seeing any play, obviously has more charges while costing only 1 mana more. And at the same time, it triggers death rattles, and it can be cast on cards that are not friendly undead, but also other cards. And most tokens aren't really undead. So this has a lot of upside, and I would think this card sees play. I think this Syndragosa would see Fringe play as it stands right now. I think Zombies might see play, and I think all of the Priest cards could definitely see play. So that's my review so far. We've got 8 more classes to go, so we'll have a look in the mini set for those cards. Thank you guys for joining.